So we got Endo and Takashi in this shot here. Takashi being the strongest in Fuden's history, right? That we find out in this episode. Endo, we also know is pretty strong because he was about to take on 4v1 and probably win, if I had to guess. They got some problems. I think Sakura and group are gonna have their hands full. Now, this is the season finale. And it was all just expedition here. All expedition. We're gonna go over some shots, but there's not much to discuss in the way of what's actually going on. It's pretty easy to stay on track here. So we're gonna go over a couple of shots here that I thought was interesting. We're gonna go to this one, and we find out here that while Ume was telling the story about Fuden's past and everything that transpired, right, we find out that he never fought Endo 1v1. Never. And they didn't actually beat that group either. It ended pretty much every time in stalemate, and then they ended up leaving because Fuden was turning into more of what it is today, as opposed to the chaos and the fighting and the corruption that Endo wanted, right? It was slowly slipping away, so he left on their own accord, right? So while Nide was there, and he was under the assumption that Endo's group was defeated, and that's just not the case, right? That was not the case. I was a little surprised by that as well, but that's just not the case. And then we find out that, Ume never fought him 1v1. Say, I think the upcoming seasons of Windbreaker are possibly going to be like not even close to season 1 and 2, because they're introducing these characters that are strong, that are powerful, that have a backstory to Fuden, and then all the characters that we know now who we think are strong, there are stronger ones, right, that they're going to be up against. And we find out that they never actually beat them. They never actually fought 1v1. That's probably why in the last episode, everybody was shook when Endo came. Everybody was shook. Everybody. Tsubaki, Kaiji, like all of them shook. Insane. So I don't know how far Sakura is going to progress in terms of prowess. In terms of mentally, he has progressed a lot in this season, but in terms of actual fighting prowess, that has yet to be seen. Okay, that has yet to be seen. We're gonna go to another scene here, but while I do that, one can argue that mentally his mentality changing can also contribute to his fighting prowess, and that could also increase, but again, that has yet to be seen, right? I thought this was a badass shot of Endo here. I thought this was a badass shot. What this reminded me of immediately was Blue Exorcist. Okay, this immediately reminded me of Blue Exorcist, right? This is a sick shot, right? This is a sick shot of Endo, just absolutely sick. And it looks like this was before maybe he had all those tattoos, maybe, because you don't see the one on his neck, although he has his collar up, so maybe it's there, you just don't see it. But this was badass, and he was kind of like the anti versus, the good guys versus the bad guys, right? So he was a leader of that, the group that wanted Fuden to stay in that chaos regime, right? So a lot of the expedition in this episode was explaining how things came to be. Pretty much putting more hype on Endo here, more hype on him, because he was never actually defeated 1v1. Never actually defeated, right? And he's taking a liking to Sakura, probably because he sees himself in Sakura, or the Fuden that he wants to build, Sakura would fit well there, right? That could also be the case. But going to Takashi, who is, we find out, another legend who is the strongest in Fuden's history. Okay, now we don't know what kind of role he played in it. I'm trying to get to the scene here. We don't know what kind of role he played in it, right? Because he wasn't talked about when they were, talking about what happened back then. It was all Endo. But the issue that Fuden has now is that they're hanging around each other, right? Endo's an issue. He's also an issue because he's the strongest in Fuden's history. So if they're on the same side, it's just going to be a problem. Now, when I first saw his hair, I'll be honest, when I first saw his hair, it reminded me of Rengoku, because there's not too many people in the anime history or universe that have had this kind of hair, right? It was Rengoku, his dad, off the top of my head, Rengoku, his dad, his brother, the chick from Blue Exorcist, and some other people whose names are escaping me, but those are the two that pop up immediately. So his hair being like that is signifies problems. Okay, signifies problems, because everyone that we've seen in anime whose hair looks like that has either been strong and a problem, right? So we shall see. But this is the season finale. It'll be a while before we get any other information or what's going on in the next season for the anime onlys, right? This season, I would probably give this season an 8.5. There wasn't as much action, but there was a lot of expedition and there was a lot of growth in the main character, Sakura. A lot of growth. You see him transforming before our very eyes in this very season, which I thought was good. Usually takes a few seasons before the main character actually starts to change, and it's a gradual change. This one was more of it was a steady change, and while some may say it happened a bit too quickly, I thought it was fine. I thought the pacing was fine. And they explained a lot in this episode, especially the backstories that we got to see from some characters who I assume will be relevant in the next seasons. So 8.5 season. I kind of want to read the manga or the light novel to see if it all lines up. I might do that, but I enjoyed this season. But let me know what you guys think. What do you think of this season? What do you think of this last episode? Do you think Fuden is against the wall here, right? Because they got two people that they've never actually beat before that are coming after them, so to speak, right? But that's all I have for this one. Until next time, keep on keeping on.